Thank everyone for coming. I am Omar Ali, son to Yusuf Ali and Victoria Ali, husband to Serena Ali, and father to Idris and Taj Ali. Family is very important to me, and community is very important to me as well. So I'm going to tell a story, and hopefully this story will paint a picture that will soften our hearts and remind us that we're all human beings and have the same issues here in America. I've been taking martial arts for 18 years, just as long as I've been married. Wing Chun. There was a white guy at our school. Do you guys remember that motorcycle show to where it had the two sons and the dad that had the mustache? Well, this guy looked just like that, had a mustache and a ponytail. Every time I would pass him, he would be bashing Democrats, saying something about Republicans. And my Sifu would always pair me with this particular guy, and he would never pull his punches. He would just hit me with just enough. And so surely I thought this guy had an issue with me. So this went on for a couple months. And so one day I was sick, and I went to the training hall and sat on a bench to the right as you walk in the door to watch everyone. So this particular time, he was paired with another white guy, and he was mollywhopping this guy also. Next was a guy by the name of Philip, who was half white, half Asian, no mercy on him at all. The person that came up next was an Indian guy, still no mercy. Then a woman came up, and in my mind, I'm thinking, surely he's going to have mercy on the woman. Absolutely not. And so I started to think, maybe this guy just don't like anyone. And so as training was ending, he walked past me and said, I hope you feel better. Then I overheard a conversation with him about his son. He said that his son was deployed to Afghanistan. But the comment he made was he was deployed to Afghanistan in this Muslim country. I am Muslim. That made me feel a certain way. And so I went and told my father about it. And my father said, well, did he lie? It is a Muslim country. And I thought about that. I said, you're absolutely right. So we went back to training, getting the same brutal beat down by this particular person. 2 months had went by, and I went to India. And it weighed on my heart and it weighed on my mind a lot about his son. And so I'm thinking, as I'm in India, this is the closest I'm going to get to Afghanistan. You got India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, close enough. And so he loves guns, I love guns, and I talk about guns. He loves knives, and I love knives. And so I bought him a gift when I was over in India, a really sharp knife, brought it back to him and presented it to him. And I told him, I pray that your son is safe while protecting the United States. That sparked a relationship that was unbelievable. He would die for me. I would die for him. And if there's any issue that the African-American community have, he would be on the front lines fighting for the African-American community. His name is Freddie. Freddie couldn't be here with me today, but I hope this story hit home with everyone to understand that the difference that we have can be overcome if we just have a conversation with each other and set our biases aside. And so one of my Kung Fu brothers did make it, and he was in the story, Philip. And so before we get started, every year I do an apprenticeship program. And my goal of the apprenticeship program is to take like-minded people and how can I make these like-minded people millionaires to bring economics back to their communities, wherever their communities are. So I would like for my mentees to stand up and everyone give them a round of applause. Good. So as we get this show started, everyone know that I am an independent. I have Republican friends, I have Democratic friends. And one thing that we have in common is the way of life here in Georgia and how do we protect Georgia. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Cobb. I'm one of Omar's many Republican friends. So I just wanted to say that. And we get that often. But really what I just wanted to share with everybody, and thank all the candidates for being here today. And, I just wanted to say that civic engagement is really the bedrock of our American culture. And it gives us our purpose too. So with that, I simply want to say thank everyone for being here. for what I believe is going to be a very historic forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Good day, everyone. I'm Tamisha Harris, and I'll be serving as your moderator, one of them today. Our goal is simple: to provide voters with clear and direct answers about the future of Georgia. We'll be covering the economy, small business growth, affordability, workforce development, healthcare, and the long-term direction of the state of Georgia. Before we begin, a few guidelines. Each candidate will have a specific amount of time to answer every question. I will announce the time allotted at the start of each round. The clock will start at the beginning of your answer. When the time expires, we will move forward. Each candidate will have an opportunity to be first to answer a question. After you answer, the candidate to the right of you will answer. There will be no interruptions, no crosstalk. Moderators control the floor at all times. Please answer the question that is asked. If a response moves off topic, we may redirect to ensure clarity for our voters. There will be no rebuttals. After the final round, each candidate will have 1 minute for their closing statement. We expect respect for one another, for this audience, and for the democratic process. Let's begin. Each candidate will have 1 minute for their opening statement. We begin with Mr. Olu Brown.
Well, thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for hosting this wonderful engagement. If you look at the Secretary's website, the Secretary of State website, I was the first one to declare my candidacy out of everyone who was here today. Because I believe leaders know first. We don't wait to see who's going to get in the race. We feel called to serve, we serve. And so before I declared, I did a listening tour across Georgia. And I asked people 3 questions. What do you love about Georgia? What are your concerns about Georgia? And what would you change? And here's what I consistently heard. Olu, we're glad you're here. Please don't forget about us, and please come back. What makes me different from every candidate running for governor is I will always show up. I will always be present, and I will always care. And not only will I fight for you, but my whole leadership journey will tell you that I will also fight with you. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a small business owner, I'm a faith leader, I'm a builder. My name is Olu Brown, and I want to be your next governor. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Representative Roman.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for having us. Can y'all hear me okay? Thank you so much for having us today and for welcoming us into your neighborhood and your community. I am State Representative Rua Roman, and I'm running for governor because we deserve a Georgia that we can afford and where we belong. I grew up here. In fact, I grew up in Forsyth County. My dad is a farmer in Elberton. My grandfather is buried out in Cobb. And it's because I love our state that I believe we deserve better. We deserve a leader that has vision, that can understand our job is to fix the problems of the present while investing in our future. And that's why when we launched this campaign, we did it with a focus on people. We have been door knocking all around the state, hearing from them, talking to them directly on their front porches. And we hear the same problems: rural, urban, suburban. Life is getting so much harder, and people are getting so much less for more work. And I think we have an obligation to fix that. So I'm Rua Roman, and I'm honored to be here, and I hope to earn your vote today. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney General Cobb.
So, Omar, thank you for doing this. And I appreciate what you said about people being able to come together and talk. Because I worked for Johnny Isakson, and he's the one guy that I know that could bring people together. We actually have a symposium at UGA on political civility to bring Democrats and Republicans together to talk. But I'm running for governor because I think Georgia's the model for the nation. You know, and as I look around the room, I say, no matter where I am, we're all here because of a job. My family came to Georgia because of a job. But we didn't become the #1 state in the nation in which to do business just because it happened by chance. It took work. And we got to focus on education and workforce and literacy and infrastructure and keep this state with the lowest tax burden of any state in the nation. We got to continue to focus on those things, but we got to keep what Tanya Miller just said, keep people safe. because I don't care what government is supposed to do is to keep people safe. I don't care your race, your gender, your religion, your sexual orientation, where you live or where you're from. You deserve to be safe in the state of Georgia. And that's what I have done as Attorney General. But the other thing about this state is there's something in our DNA. We have the public sector and the private sector, people of diverse backgrounds and geography that come together to solve tough problems. As your governor, that's the kind of leader I will be. That's what we'll continue to do, and I want to earn your vote and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General.
Yeah, thank you so much, Omar, for having us here today. And thank you to all of you for taking your afternoon on a Saturday to hear about the future of our state. My name is Jason Estevez, and I'm proud to be running to be the next governor of the great state of Georgia. And I know that Georgians are sick and tired of working harder than they've ever worked and barely getting by. And it's because of politicians like Donald Trump and my opponents, both Republicans and Democrats, who have continuously put politics ahead of the interests of the people of the state of Georgia. And in times of crisis, I've always run towards a fight. And that's what I'll do as governor. I'm from the south side of Columbus. I was raised by two parents who didn't go to college, but they taught me everything that I need to know. They taught me to love my God, to work hard, and to leave my community better than how I found it. And it's those values that I took with me as a middle school social studies teacher, as chair of the Atlanta Public Schools Board of Education, and as a state senator. I have the lived experiences, the record, and the vision for the future of this state to deliver. And as your governor, I'm going to focus on what matters the most: your health, your wealth, and your opportunities. And by working together, I know we can make that a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Jackson.
Good afternoon. I'm State Representative Derek Jackson. Thank you, Omar, for hosting this awesome bipartisan event. Listen, my first career started off in the United States Navy. I'm a retired naval officer. I did 22 years fighting for family, making sure that our Constitution, our democracy, for all families. But when I retired after 22 years in the United States Navy, my service did not end there. I went into corporate America, worked for an awesome company. I just give you the initials, GE. And in that, I learned about diplomacy. Our products went to 162 countries. Me and my team facilitated a $1 billion portfolio. But when my first wife was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2014, I took a sabbatical from GE. I learned then that the healthcare in Georgia was insufficient and ineffective, especially for Black women. And when I got into this race for District 64 at the time, in 2016, my initiative was around family and healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Jackson.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. Omar, this place is amazing. Thank you so much for this setup. It truly is an honor to be here. You know, I get asked the question a lot, Jeff, why are you running for governor as a Democrat? And I can assure you it's not because it's easy. It would have been easier just to stay as a Republican and act like I like Donald Trump and stand up for his policies, which I don't believe in. It's been nearly 30 years since a Democrat's been sworn in as governor in Georgia, and we can all come up with complicated reasons why that's the case, but the reality is very simple. We've not gotten enough votes. To be governor in Georgia, you've got to win more than the base. I'm building a coalition of Democrats, independents, and disgusted Republicans, big enough to not just win another primary, but to actually win a general election and change the direction of this state and this country. To do that, we've got to stay laser focused and disciplined on our message. I'm staying focused on the affordability crisis, the healthcare crisis, and the Donald Trump crisis. Most Georgians wake up worried about those three things every minute of every day. And I'll tell you a little secret, even Republicans are worried about the same exact things. I'm Jeff Duncan, I'm running for governor. I look forward to earning your trust and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan.
I'm Mike Thurman, and I'm working hard to be elected the next governor of the state of Georgia. Thank you so much, Omar, for the vision and for hosting us today. As was stated, Georgia is ranked #1 in business, but it is at the absolute bottom when it comes to providing jobs for people to support their families. We're at the bottom as it relates to maternal and infant and fetal health. We're at the bottom when it comes to per capita income. Georgia's state government is broken. And if you give me the opportunity, we can fix what is wrong with Georgia. We must create a state that creates jobs, urban, rural, suburban. We must create a state that has a leading public education system with multiple pathways to success. As your next governor, I will do what I've always done throughout my career, which is to build a multiracial coalition that elected me 3 times statewide as your labor commissioner. We can get the job done with your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thurman. Mr. Dean.
Thanks. So I'm Clark Dean, and I believe it's a great day in Georgia. Every morning, we get to wake up in the greatest state in the greatest country in the world, and we wake up with a choice to make every day a great day for each and every one that we ever meet. That is a choice. It's the American dream, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I'm Clark Dean. I'm not a politician. This is my first time at this, guys. I'm a business guy. I'm a husband, a father, but I also have built an entire career around client service, serving clients, building businesses, strengthening nonprofits, and enriching communities across the state and around the country, and actually around the world as well. The fact of the matter is, this state deserves a governor that views every single one of you here today as clients. We have 11 million clients in the state of Georgia. How do you serve them? The fact of the matter is, none of this stuff is about me. It's not about any of these guys sitting around or ladies sitting around the table. It's about you. It's about what are your hopes, your fears, your dreams. I've gone all over the state and come up with this ASAP plan for Georgia that I look forward to unpacking with you guys here today that we need to do as soon as possible so that all Georgians can thrive.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Let's begin. For this round of questions, each candidate will have 30 seconds.
30 seconds?
Hurry up. What is one policy currently supported by your party that you believe needs to be rethought for the good of Georgia's economy? We will begin with Mr. Dean.
Well, thank you. So right now, I think there's a lot of well-intended but misguided war on incentives. And I believe that business incentives properly negotiated are good for Georgians. But they have to be well negotiated. And you have to be negotiated by someone who actually is representing every one of you as a client to advance your interest in these incentives. But it's an important tool, and we can't take it away from the governor's office to be able to negotiate good deals that bring jobs and value to the state of Georgia.
Thank you. Mr. Thurman.
First, I have never and will never put party before people. People must come first. And any policy that undermines or does not prioritize the needs of working Georgians, of families and children and public education, I will oppose it. It doesn't matter what the party is. It must always first be about the people.
Thank you, Mr. Thurman.
I think we've got to look through a lens of 159 counties and how we economically develop and how we grow, looking for opportunities to incentivize, but in right-size incentives. I also think it's important to be fiscally responsible. One of the biggest warm spots for me when I switched parties and became a Democrat was how many Democrats are actually fiscally responsible and willing to stand up and talk about it. Building a more efficient government, a more effective government, and driving those economic opportunities to all 159 counties, not just a handful around the city of Atlanta.
Thank you, Mr. Becker.
30 seconds.
30 seconds, let's go.
Well, trickle-down economics do not work in this country. In the late, great Jesse Jackson said, trickle-down economics don't trickle down. And so we need to have an economic policy starting with the bottom up. And so we need to build out the middle class, starting with labor. And I have a bill already, and it's called Increase the Minimum Wage. Increasing the minimum wage, which the Republicans, unfortunately, in the last 25 years, refused to increase. Our minimum wage is $5.15. That's the reason why affordability is a problem. House Bill 600 is a minimum wage bill to increase it from $5.15 to $15.
Thank you. Mr. Esther.
Look, I think a lot in the Democratic Party, a lot of folks in the Democratic Party have focused more on what donors have to say than what the people have to say. And in order to fix that, we have to focus in on the challenges that people are facing each and every day. And in Georgia, it's gotten way too expensive to live in this state. So we have to focus on housing. We have to focus on making sure that we make childcare affordable. We have to make sure that people have a quality education no matter where they live in this state, which means having leadership that puts the interests of people ahead of the politics that you see on Twitter or you see on TV. And that's what I'll do as governor.
Property taxes. There's a lot of conversation about taxes in this state. It's going on in the legislature right now, and I do think you can bring down the income tax responsibly and not do it on the backs of business. But I don't care if I'm in Thomasville or Atlanta or in Statesboro or where we are in the state. It doesn't matter if you're a democratically run county or Republican. We got to be able to cap property taxes at 2%, 3% of the rate of inflation. Got to be able to provide services, got to be able to provide education. But too many young families, too many seniors, too many middle-income Georgians are suffering.
Thank you, Attorney General.
Thank you. So the question was, what is something that my party does that I disagree with or a policy I would change? The one thing we can control is our primaries, and I think that we need to get big money out of politics. And one way we could do that as a party is to actually ban PACs from essentially meddling with our primaries. That's something that we have control over as a party, something that we can actually do. And so when it comes to a policy that I would change within my own party, that's one of them.
Thank you, Representative Roman.
So for me, it's not a disagreement. It's pushing our party to the next level. I believe one of the greatest ways to generate wealth is through business ownership. I'm a small business owner. We'll make sure we cut through the red tape of business ownership in Georgia, and we'll make sure owners can scale their businesses so they can hire more people and invest more in the community. And finally, for entrepreneurs applying for an LLC, we'll reduce that fee to $1 single, creating a zero barrier for entrepreneurs to enter in this space of wealth development.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
So for this next question, you also have 30 seconds. Would you publicly commit to appointing at least one senior advisor from outside of your party? Yes or no? We're going to start with Olu.
Yes.
I have to go with no, actually.
I have a good record working with people on both sides of the aisle, going back to working with Johnny Isaacson, who I mentioned before, who was seen as bipartisan nature when I was at economic development. Jobs are not partisan in any way, shape, or form. They're for Republicans, Democrats, and independents. And now as the Attorney General, I've kept everybody safe. If you are interested in bringing jobs and safety to the state, I'll work with anybody.
Thank you, Attorney General.
No, I'm committed to hiring people who have one focus on their mind, and that's the hardworking people of the state. So for me, setting a goal of one way or the other takes away from that. I'm going to focus on people who are laser focused on health, wealth, and opportunity.
Representative Jackson.
The answer is yes. I mean, for 22 years I served in the Navy. I learned that there's no monopoly on great ideas. It can come from both sides. During the 10 years I was at General, there was no monopoly on great ideas in GE. Great ideas can come from both sides. And then, now, my 10 years under the Gold Dome has been different. But the bottom line is, the answer is yes. I mean, if you're qualified and capable in serving and leading for all, I'll be open to the idea.
The next governor of Georgia will not just work for the individuals that voted for him or her. They'll work for all 11 million Georgians. And yes, I will commit to having folks from the other party inside of our decision-making process. I think it's important to look at track records. And even as a Republican, I worked with Stacey Abrams to pass record-setting rural hospital tax credit bill, which has raised nearly $500 million for 54 rural hospitals. I appointed a number of Democrats to be chairpersons of committees. And also, I probably spent as much time in the Democratic caucus meetings as I did Republican caucus meetings. It's time to break down the barriers and work together.
Mr. Thurman.
Rather than answering the hypothetical, let me just state a fact. As the CEO of DeKalb County, I led 6,000 employees. As superintendent, I led 13,000 employees. As the DFACS director, we had 9,000 employees. And as labor commissioner, we led 6,000 employees. And I never once asked anyone who reported to me how he or she voted or what party they were affiliated with or their sexual orientation. That's not a promise. That's just a fact.
So the best teams that I've ever worked in, the companies I've built, the clients I've served, are ones that are both smart and healthy. You have to have the smartest people around problems, and you have to have healthy relationships. It's relationships that matter. And we need to build relationships with folks we disagree with, because if you have those healthy relationships, it allows you to duke it out on the ideas, to get to the best answers for all of Georgia. So yes, I want diverse thinking on my team. It makes us sharper and it makes us stronger.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. The next round of questions, each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer. Georgia ranks high for business climate, yet many small businesses say they are struggling. What specific policies would you implement in your first 2 years to help small businesses survive and scale? We'll begin with Mr. Duncan.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. The first thing I would do is continue to stand up like the Supreme Court did against tariffs. They are absolutely ripping the heart and soul out of businesses all across our state. No matter which community you go to, it's affecting their businesses and the individuals. I think we got to make life more affordable for these individuals and these small business owners. We can talk about economic incentives all we want, but we also have to make sure that we have workers that can show up, that can afford childcare, that can afford health care, that can afford a way of life and be able to put a roof over their head. So as governor, we'll continue to work with economic development opportunities, workforce development. We'll continue to take the momentum that we've got. Georgia is headed in a good direction, but it's time to go in a great direction. It's time to continue to grab onto labor groups. Instead of demonizing organized labor, we need to work with organized labor and meet the rest of the world where they want us to be, and that's working as a team, as an opportunity to work as a state. Like I said, we're headed in a good direction, but I think there's an opportunity for us to go in a great direction.
Yeah, so although Georgia's been claimed to be, can you hear me? To be the number one state to do business, unfortunately, we're not the number one state when it comes to small businesses. During the COVID situation, we did not do as a state for small businesses. The former state representative, Roger Bruce, had a bill specifically around small businesses, and the Georgia General Assembly did not carry that bill. And those are the kind of bills that the Democratic Party has continued to champion, not just wait for disaster to happen. We need to make sure that the nearly 1 million small businesses in Georgia not only get access to the capital that they need, but have the legislation in place so it doesn't inadvertently hurt small businesses. And a lot of legislation that we continue to pass hurting small businesses in Georgia.
Yeah, when Brian Kemp talks about being the number one state to do business, what he means is the number one state for big business, because we are seeing record number of small businesses close across the state, including the number of farmers who are small business owners as well, by the way, who have declared bankruptcy. So as governor, what I intend on doing is creating a $1 billion low interest loan and grant program for small business owners and entrepreneurs, because I understand that the number one barrier that people have to opening your own small business or growing it is access to capital. I'm also going to make sure that we cut the red tape that exists at the local and state level. I've opened businesses. My wife and I, we own 3 businesses, one in Columbus, one in Macon, and one in Atlanta. So we've opened businesses in different jurisdictions. I know what red tape looks like at the local level. I want to make sure that I'm working with city and county elected officials to cut that red tape. And I also want to make sure that the tax giveaways that we are currently giving to the billionaires and the big corporations, that we also show the love to the small business owners, because oftentimes those tax credits and deductions are not allowed for small businesses when they should.
Number one state in the nation to do business, and I'm proud of it. Started when I became the Commissioner of Economic Development, and we know that 95 to 98% of all business is small business. My family is here because my dad was a small business owner. But you do have to get the red tape out of the way. We have an entrepreneurial spirit in this state that's second to none. And we've got some great businesses that are developing at the university level, at our great innovation centers. We got to unleash that, get government out of the way so that business can grow. A tax environment. Look, when you are the top state for business, people are coming after you. It's income, sales, property, and fees. We've got to make sure we have the lowest tax burden of any state in the nation. Workforce. Doesn't matter what industry you are in. Everybody's looking for talent. We are a state that grows it. We're a state that attracts it. We got to help pair small business with that. And insurance costs. Insurance costs have gone up. I commend the legislature and the governor for attacking the tort reform issue and making sure that we have a good environment for business so that it can continue to grow.
Thank you.
Thank you. So here are the facts. We are actually the 7th worst state for small businesses in the country. 25% of small businesses fail within the first year. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We can talk about the typical stuff like red tape, But the other reality is, yes, we are, in fact, protecting corporations more than anybody else. Corporations are more likely to get government contracts. Corporations are more likely to get a leg up. Corporations are more likely to get meetings with leaders of the state, and it is deeply unfortunate. If we're serious about fixing this crisis, we have to do a few things. First and foremost, believe it or not, we need to expand Medicaid. Medicaid is one of the most important tools, not just healthcare-wise, but also economically. We've lost tens of thousands of jobs by not expanding Medicaid, and these small businesses cannot compete with large corporations that can offer large benefit packages. But in addition to that, we can invest in small businesses. Currently, we provide most of our tax breaks to large corporations, ones that have come to the table and talked directly to the governor, and next thing you know, they're getting it. And when I mentioned earlier about the government being able to provide those businesses with contracts, y'all, one of the most egregious examples recently is actually Rick Jackson. He received a $40 million contract. I would have much rather that small businesses receive that kind of support and money.
Yeah. So my alarm clock goes off every morning at 3 a.m. And by 4:20 a.m., I'm a mile down the road at a small business called Effect Fitness. That is a small business that happens to be owned by African Americans. The first thing I will do for small businesses is wake up at 3 a.m. to support them. And I'm so glad that I had that opportunity to do it. I'm a small business owner. And what a lot of small business owners will tell you, they can't go to a family barbecue and leave with $250,000 worth of investment money. They need access to capital. We'll use our $14 billion surplus to create capital reserves for folks like Effect Fitness a mile down the road. Secondly, a lot of small businesses struggle because they can't hire an additional employee to scale, to grow, and be able to reach higher heights. We will initiate the first hire tax credit for small businesses in Georgia so that not only can you employ yourself, but you can also employ an additional individual.
Okay, for our next question, I'm sorry.
If we could wrap around, I'd love to answer this one. So, because small businesses are super important, we have to make sure that the cost of doing small business comes down. That's dealing with taxes and fees and insurance and a lot of those things for sure. But you know what the thing that causes most small businesses to fail? The lack of customers. Now that sounds strange, but what happens is a lot of small businesses are focused on problems that people don't necessarily need solved. So as governor of Georgia, I'm going to create a Georgia marketplace of problems worth solving. This cuts across our entire state, across industry, across sector, and identifies opportunities for real problems that if you solve them, there is profit potential and society benefit on the other side of that problem. Let's highlight those and then lean into the creativity of Georgians who start businesses, to start businesses and innovate around those problems, to solve those problems, and then reap the rewards of the profit potential on the other side of it. We have so much promise in this state. We have been number one in business for a long time. We should be number one in lots of things. And we shouldn't be number 37 in maternal mortality. We have things that we can solve, but we can do it together, but we have to get creative. The same old strategies are not working, folks. We got to inject new ideas. Thank you.
Within 30 days after I'm sworn in as the next governor of Georgia, I will direct the Commissioner of Banking and Finance to convene a meeting of community bankers from across the state of Georgia. And we are going to implement a strategy I pioneered in DeKalb where we set up a $10 million revolving fund that provided capital and collateral for small business owners. And it was a forgivable loan if those small business owners would attend technical assistant classes provided by our local Chamber of Commerce. The second thing I'm going to do when we attract businesses to Georgia, those businesses are going to have to do business with small Georgia-owned and operated companies. We celebrate and talk about the jobs we bring, but when we bring them to Georgia, we end up giving the job to other people and not Georgians. My motto will be a job for every Georgian and a Georgian for every job. And if you're a Georgia taxpayer, those are your dollars going into those incentives. You ought to be first in line to do business with the corporations who come here.
Oh, here we go. Okay. So for the next question, we're really going to kind of just double click on what Mr. Estevez talked about in terms of access to capital and some others I talked about. And what we'd like to do is to kind of change the lens a little bit and maybe talk about that access to capital and really how that applies to folks in rural Georgia. I think we've heard a lot about, I interpret it as metro area, but if you could start us off, Ms. Rest, talking about what that impact, access to capital, and specific ways to do that for folks in rural Georgia.
Yeah, when I speak about access to capital, when I talk about the $1 billion low interest loan and grant program for entrepreneurs, I'm actually talking about small businesses and entrepreneurs throughout the entire state of Georgia. Because as I crisscross Georgia, as I'm driving through small towns, it's not some big company that is revitalizing those areas. It's those mom and pop shops that are helping to revitalize main streets throughout this entire state. And what they need is access to capital. What they need is a state government, a governor that is giving them as much love and support as Governor Kemp gives to Hyundai and Rivian. And that's what I'll do as governor. I'm going to make sure that no matter where you live in this state, that you have the opportunity to help invest in your communities. And here's the win-win for taxpayers. The money that those small business owners and those entrepreneurs make stays right in our community. That's what we should be building as a state. And that's a vision for the future of the state that gives Georgians something to vote for, not just something to vote against. And that's what we need to be talking about in this race for Georgia governor.
I think there's two sides. There's the institutional banking side, and then there's the private investment side. And Jason's right. Go to Thomasville, Georgia. See what's happened downtown and the revitalization to small businesses and restaurants that has occurred down there. But after Dodd-Frank, which was supposed to make sure no bank was too big to fail, we killed small community banks. And Georgia was built on community banks. I also would be working with our banking commission to make sure that we put the focus back on building community banks in this state. Secondly, I was talking about the great businesses that we create at the ATDC at Georgia Tech, and this is going to be Jeff Duncan's greatest moment ever. I am a double dog, but God bless Georgia Tech, okay? But also not just what's going, bipartisan just right there, but not just at Georgia Tech. We've got the Russell Center for Innovation. We've got so many different innovation centers around this city and around the state. We've got to be able to keep those businesses here, so we need to have the private equity come. We need to have those funds that will come. We've got to create an environment where they will fund our businesses and they will stay here to hire Georgians.
We've often heard that trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, is a definition of insanity. And unfortunately, what that's resulted in is that 94 of 159 counties are now experiencing more deaths than births. And part of that is healthcare. Part of that is that the younger generation isn't staying in their local communities. They're not seeing the opportunities presented to them that was presented to generations before them. And it's been over 20 years. I have heard it my entire life here of we're prioritizing rural Georgia, but what is that prioritization? It is those large corporations coming in. And so when we talk about rural Georgia, we have to talk about expanding healthcare access so people can feel safe living there. We have to talk about expanding our infrastructure to include not just better roads and better infrastructure, but also we need to be looking at trains. We need to be looking at public transportation and reducing the traffic because we're preventing so much expansion because it's taking too long to get to those hubs. And last but not least, I am a firm believer that education is very important. We got to up our literacy rates as well.
Well, one of my trips over these last few months was to a small town in South Georgia called Serency, Georgia. And as I drove into town, I can see the lack of disinvestment. And as I met with members of that community around a table in a local church, I could hear their heartbreak. That's why, as governor, I'll launch the Georgia Opportunity Fund, where we will use portions of our $14 billion surplus to reinvest in rural communities like Serency, Georgia. The Attorney General mentioned the Russell Center for Innovation. Well, I'm a church planner, and we started a church called Impact Church. Our address in our office was 504 Fair Street, which used to be the corporate office for the Russell Company. Jerome Russell, one of the Russell family members, said, "Olu, the reason there's a Russell Innovation Center is because of Impact Church. We saw you in our building, and we saw a bigger dream. I know about small businesses. I know about creating hubs. I know about innovation, and I know about changing communities, not only in Metro, but also in rural and South Georgia." That's what I've done my whole career.
So clearly, we need government programs. There's no question. But let's take it up a level. Let's take it up a notch. The fact of the matter is, trust is what allows capital to flow. So why not instead have a governor's initiative for relationship-based capital that actually brings investors from around the state, from Atlanta throughout the rural Georgia, to come and actually mentor small businesses around opportunities that are problem-driven innovation, right? Opportunities to actually create value in some of these rural areas. One of the really interesting ideas that I've heard as I've listened around the road is this opportunity for targeted food processing in rural areas. Right now we have 40% of what we grow goes wasted. But there's an opportunity to invest in small businesses that can actually process that food, allow farmers to monetize that additional 40%, and actually bring our food costs down, all while stimulating our economy. One small example of problem-driven innovation and building relationships so capital can flow.
Let's be clear. If the leadership of this state wanted to inject economic vitality and growth in rural Georgia, they would expand Medicaid. The studies show the expansion of Medicaid would create 80,000 new jobs. About 6,500 of those jobs would actually occur and be created in rural Georgia. And you would save lives. We have the blueprint ready to go. What we will do, and there are 140 community banks still existing in the state of Georgia, we can partner with them, provide the capital to support local small businesses who need capital to grow. Look, I've been in business for 40 years. And let me tell you something. I know what it's like to show up on Monday and not knowing who's going to pay the payroll on Friday. I know what it's like. But America and Georgia has been built on the back of small business owners. But we got to have a government that's not just about the big guys, but also about the small businesses across this state.
The largest employers in rural Georgia are typically the school system and the healthcare system. And Mike's right to point out expanding Medicaid would create an economic boom for all the right reasons in those communities. I've seen it firsthand when I was able to pass the rural hospital tax credit that's brought over $500 million in 8 years to 54 rural communities. You've seen the positive effects of that job stability. You can't economically develop a rural community if the front page of the newspaper talks about a hospital missing a payroll or going out of business. But also you've got to tackle on the education side. Education is the rising tide that lifts all boats. It creates everyone on an even platform. In the first place we have to start as a state is revising this QBE formula. It's 40 years old. It has no weight for poverty, transportation, technology upgrades, inflation. It's literally 40 years old and it needs to be upgraded. Rural Georgia deserves to have a platform that allows kids to graduate from high school ready for the 21st century. As Lieutenant Governor, I stood strong to build up a program called Partnership for Inclusive Innovation, which brought hundreds of internships to rural Georgia through technology. Every business in Georgia is a technology company, whether it's Coca-Cola, Delta, or even a farmer. They use technology to grow their businesses and move forward. We can move the ball in rural Georgia.
Of the 159 counties, 122 counties are considered rural. In fact, my family goes back to the early 1800s. My great-great-grandfather was purchased in Charleston, South Carolina, and brought to Burke County. My grandfather and my grandmother, born and raised in Burke County. My mother, born in Burke County. And so if you are Jackson, Clark, Rainey, and Waynesboro, Swainsboro, Statesboro, they'll tell you got to show up. Yes, they need capital. Yes, they need infrastructure. Yes, they need health care. But you got to show up first. You have to have a governor that's going to say, I see you, I hear you, and I'm going to deliver what you need. All 159 counties are not considered equal. And so as governor, what I would do, I'll do the same thing that I did in the last 10 years for District 68. It's the fastest growing House district in Georgia, where we recognize $3 billion economic development, $400 million infrastructure improvement, and created 30,000. That's the kind of governor I will be. I don't have to speak in hypothetical. I speak with results.
Difficult because you're hitting on all of the points, so now I got to change up my questions in the fly. So Ramadan Mubarak. So this next question is for you, Rua, and you have 30 seconds. State contracts often go to the same major firms because of two reasons: payment and performance bonds, which is an insurance mechanism, and prompt pay issues. How would you improve upon payment and performance bond and prompt pay?
So In my previous life, I actually worked for essentially equivalent of a government contractor. And that experience really showed me a couple of things. One, the opportunity within government contracts that can be presented. And two, how we can actually leverage those same corporations to build that pathway for the smaller businesses. We can actually set requirements for those large corporations to include 40% of their subcontractors to be small businesses and actually handle some of the infrastructure that a small business doesn't have to be able to enter into that sort of government contracting workspace.
So one of the things I'll do is launch a dashboard that shows clarity of all state contracts that are currently held by Georgia so that every citizen can see who has the contract, what the cost is, and all of the details. So we'll have complete transparency. And I'll also mandate for every director and every commissioner managing, interviewing, or approving state contracts that we use equity and that we use fairness. And as governor, I'll make sure we follow through on it.
So I'm a big believer in partnership and collaboration more than mandates and dictates. Because I think that a lot of these programs, quite frankly, disrespect small businesses. I think we got to be more creative in how we actually allow for some of these bonding problems and other things to be solved for those businesses. But let's also invite them in to opportunities that they can actually solve and they can actually do at whatever scale they are currently. Not all jobs are great jobs for a small business. It could actually turn them under. But if we unlock opportunities that exist within the state government to make our government more efficient and effective and bring small businesses in to partner with the government to do those things that they can do well, that can create value for their businesses because there are problems that need to be solved, then we can actually respect small businesses, focus their attentions and their creativity and their capabilities on problems that will actually make a difference for all of us.
In reality, the door of opportunity for small businesses is closed under the gold dome, truth be told. What we were able to do, this is a real life example, is that with our SPLOS program that we passed, we had $320 million in potential contracting opportunities. More than $120 million went to businesses owned and operated by DeKalb residents of color. 37.5%. I will create immediately the opportunity for small businesses to get access to opportunities. I'll quote James Brown, "You don't have to give me nothing. If you open up the door, we'll get it ourselves." Thank you.
The most impactful leaders in my life have been the leaders that lead by example. And as governor, I will lead by example and look for opportunities to expand who the largest employer, which is the state of Georgia state government, works with and how we work with them. I think first and foremost, inviting organized labor to be at those tables and in those bidding processes is something that's been eye-opening to me as how they've been blocked out for nearly over 20 plus years from even having a seat at the table. But I think also it's important that as governor, I will have the most diverse, equitable, and inclusive state government in this country. Donald Trump's attempts to inhumanely and discriminate against this DEI across this state, even what we've seen play out at the airport, is disgusting. It's nothing short of racist. And as governor, I will make sure that we do everything possible to be diverse, equitable, and inclusive, not because I'm checking boxes, but because it's the right thing to do.
I, too, set up a diversity, equity, inclusion commission to include small business owners. Omar, your question is an excellent question because 10 years ago, when I first got elected, our budget was $19 billion. Today it's $43 billion. The voice that's not part of that process in that growth was small businesses. So I will be a governor that created a small business commission and to make sure that diversity, equity, inclusion is not a boogeyman. It's the reality.
Yeah, and I heard some very specific things that you asked about, and I want to make sure to address those because it's important. As a small business owner who has done business with the state of Georgia, I want to start with pay. Ensuring that the state of Georgia treats its small business, it's the folks who are doing services for them the same way that the state of Georgia would expect from those businesses. And prompt payment is incredibly important because we've done work for the state of Georgia in the form of catering, yet we have to wait 60 to 90 days to get paid, which means that a small business owner has to float that money while it waits. I want to make sure we streamline that process. I also want to make sure we break up the good old boy club down at the Capitol by breaking up many of these contracts into chunks so that small business owners and entrepreneurs can actually afford the bonding requirements and afford to apply. And we also have to cut the number of pages that come with the bidding process, because small business owners and entrepreneurs can't pay lawyers and can't pay lobbyists to go through that process.
When I became Commissioner of Economic Development and Attorney General, and I asked somebody why we did this way, the number one answer was because we've always done it that way. Worst answer you could ever give. When we're talking about using tax dollars and state contracts, we got to make sure it's excellent. So we've got to open up the pool and make sure that we have, and I will direct this governor, make sure that our process is fair, it is open, and it is competitive. Secondly, you have to market. People need to know that the opportunities are there. We have to modernize our marketing system. So I will absolutely make sure, and I'll tell you what, I believe in the dignity and the value and the worth of every single human being. I don't discriminate against anyone, and I won't as governor.
Thank you, Attorney General. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer the next question. Many Georgians feel their way of life is becoming unaffordable. What is your direct strategy to lower everyday household costs? We'll begin with Representative Jackson.
You know, cost of living is a real problem. That's the reason why affordability is part of our vernacular today. But I've been talking about this for the last 10 years. When you watch your dying wife, you having conversation with nurses, and nurses saying, hey, I'm working 2 or 3 jobs, right? A nurse shouldn't have to work 2 or 3 jobs. When you have young children going to public education and you having a conversation around school teachers and they have to, you know, give little Johnny a granola bar because little Johnny cannot learn and read while they're hungry. And so affordability is a real issue. And so that's the reason why I asked Governor, and I've already introduced a bill, because this is not just programs that I create on my website. I've been introducing legislation around this. We need to increase the salaries for teachers. We need to make sure those teachers who are retired, that their cost of living adjustment is meeting the need going along with inflation. We need to make sure our nurses also get the salary that they deserve as well. And so cost of living is a big issue, especially when you start talking about affordability.
The affordability crisis is real for everybody. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or something between all those gaps. Affordability is a crisis. Whether you own the business or you're living check to check, it's affecting everybody. And unfortunately, we have a president now that doesn't care. These tariffs, which the Supreme Court did the right thing, have absolutely destroyed us. He's not focused 1 ounce of attention on affordability. And so what does that mean? It means we don't have a friend in Washington that's going to help us. And so we've got to help ourselves. As governor, I want to take 10% of our state's rainy day fund, which is $17 billion or close to it. Take 10%, $1.7 billion, put it in a jumpstart fund to wrap our arms around those individuals stuck in that vicious cycle of poverty, to give them that one jumpstart they need, whether it be better funding the CAPS program to lower child care costs, whether that's rewriting and better funding the TANF program to help individuals meet those gaps, whether it be transportation, utility costs, and also to expand Medicaid. Look, I'm a former Republican. I've looked at every possible way to improve our state's healthcare system. It's impossible without expanding Medicaid. And as governor, we will take the steps to do that.
I'm going to stand up only because I need to stretch. Start the clock. Number one, I'm going to raise the income cap on the CAPS program, and that is a scholarship for young parents to afford child care for their sons and daughters. Child care costs are between $1,200 and $2,000 a month. I will raise it so that individuals making $84,000 a year or couples at $164,000 will get a scholarship. We created that while I was the DFACS director. And number two, a public education system that creates multiple pathways to success. Morehouse, Spelman, Georgia Tech, great. But Atlanta Tech is a great opportunity in a society now where skills are equally as important as degrees. And by the way, if your toilet goes on the brink, you call a plumber. You don't ask how much, you ask what? How soon. You can earn a great living as a plumber. White collar, blue collar, no collar, not the color of the collar. It's the green in the dollar.
Thurman.
That's right. So I've gone around all over the state and I ask people these questions. I ask them, what do they care about in their community? What do they think is the biggest opportunity for them? And I ask them what's breaking their heart. And let me tell you, what's breaking their heart right now is this affordability stuff. So I created this ASAP plan where the first A is affordability, focusing on food and grocery affordability, on housing affordability, and tax policy. The government can deal a lot with tax policy that can make things more affordable. It's important. But we can also unlock opportunities to create jobs so that people have more money to spend. The thing that I talked about before in rural Georgia, guys, that is real. And that is one little example of ways to perform what I call economic acupuncture around the state. You don't need a big government program coming in to improve affordability. But if you put a little needle in here and it expands this constraint, or a little needle in here and expands that constraint, we can actually create an economy that works for everyone so that all Georgians can truly thrive and that everything can be more affordable.
Well, the issue with affordability is we allow people who can afford everything to make the decisions, and we've got to stop that. I'm living it every single day of my life. I was at a barber shop and a fellow said, Olu, if you want to do something as governor, you got to lower the cost of auto insurance for seniors. I'm not a senior, but earlier this morning, as I was taking my morning walk, I spent an hour on the phone with an auto insurance company after talking to 5 to 10 different representatives, because we've got an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old who's driving, and our costs are crazy. In just a couple of weeks, as a small business owner, I buy my healthcare insurance on the exchange. Every single month, our healthcare premium is more than our monthly mortgage. As your next governor, you won't have to convince me of the need. I'm experiencing it every single day. So I'll use some of our government surplus, and we will start the Premium Relief Fund that we will give 15% discount on healthcare premiums for Georgians like me and Georgians like you who struggle to pay their healthcare premiums. We'll also give a caregiver tax credit of up to $3,000 for folks who are caring for their older adult family members. So we'll make a difference day one.
I'm just saying it because I don't like giving people my back, but it's fine. So the word affordability has come up several times. You're starting to hear it more in conversations, but the reality is words aren't going to feed a hungry child. Words are not going to cover rent. Words are not going to actually fix the problems people are facing. And that's why we deeply believe as a campaign, as a community, that we need to raise the minimum wage. Right now, corporations are making the most they've ever made before, and yet workers are making some of the least. In Georgia, our minimum wage is $5.15 an hour. And when we talk about our tax code and how it benefits the wealthiest, because this is really important, y'all, one of the most effective tools to alleviate poverty is the Earned Income Tax Credit. What that does is for those who make the least, they get to keep the most in their pocket. And I will never forget the story. When we had this after COVID on a federal level, people were talking about how instead of having to work 3 or 4 jobs, they only had to work 2, and as a result could take their kids out to the park for ice cream. Can y'all imagine? That is the kind of reality people are facing when we talk about the affordability crisis, and that is who we should be centering when we talk about this issue.
Yeah, the number one way to address affordability is jobs, good paying jobs. Things are really unaffordable if you don't have one. And that's the one thing that I did when I was Commissioner of Economic Development, is I knew whether we were working with small business or corporate America. And I'll tell you, I'll work with both, because I've seen the transformative nature of a job. It changes individuals, it changes families, it changes communities, and it changes our state. But the second thing's housing. We have got to incentivize the private sector to come in and to make sure that an individual can afford wherever they want to live, whether it's single family or multifamily. And the lieutenant governor is going after the affordable housing tax credit. That is wrong. I would actually lean in and we double it, because the other thing we've got is we've got communities in this state that talk about wanting to have affordable housing. And then they do everything possible to make sure the private sector can't make a profit. Profit can't be a bad word. It's the driver of innovation. It's the driver of jobs. It's the driver of lowering affordability. We're going to work together to incentivize to make sure people have a good place to live.
So affordability is certainly more than a word, and it doesn't matter whether you have a job or not, whether you're making $200,000 or you're making $30,000 a year. You are feeling the pain that is happening right here in Georgia with the increase in the cost of living. So here are some specific steps that I'll take as governor of the state each and every day that I'm in that office. First, with housing, I'm going to stop private equity funds from buying up all of our single family homes. I'm going to create an affordable housing trust fund so that we can have affordable housing being built all across the state of Georgia. I'm going to expand Medicaid to ensure that folks have access to the health insurance that they need, and I'm going to lower the cost of private health insurance. Childcare. I propose universal childcare in the state of Georgia that will be affordable for all, free for some. We can afford to expand childcare, early learning for all 3 and 4-year-olds today using the Georgia Lottery Reserve Fund. What we're missing is leadership. The last thing that I would make sure I do as soon as I'm in office is stop the corporate giveaways to data centers. $2 billion of your tax dollars. I'm going to stop giving them to the billionaires, and I'm going to put those in your pockets.
Okay, so the next question is going to be a short one. It's going to be a yes or no question, and it's going to be around property taxes, which have risen in many of Georgia's fast-growing areas, and a lot of it is due to increasing valuations. And so the yes or no question is going to be: do you support the changes, any changes in the current property tax cap system? And we'll start with the Attorney General.
Yes, I do support it. I'd cap it at 2%, 3%, or the rate of inflation, because like I said before, it does not matter where I am in the state of Georgia. This is the issue. And the problem is these assessments. It's the issue of assessments. And like I said, you got to make sure that we have services and we got to pay for education. And I'm very respectful of the role of the local government, but the state has an interest in this as well. And when you start seeing assessments going up 50, 75, or 150% in 5 years, it prices people out of their home, and that's un-American.
Yes, but I actually think that we need to start assessing corporate-owned homes very differently than people-owned homes. One of the biggest problems right now is everybody's property taxes are going up, even when it's a corporation that bought a bunch of houses, then sold it to a shell company and increased the cost, and suddenly everybody else's housing values are going up. I think in order to, one, prevent the defunding of our local education and county systems and city systems, we need to make sure that we are, focusing those taxes on the same corporations raising those costs.
My answer is yes.
There we go. The answer is yes. I mean, the fact of the matter is, property tax system is such a weird sham. I mean, I'm not a politician, but let's face it, it's kind of protects politicians. What other asset class do you own that you have to pay tax on unrealized gain? If I bought Apple stock back in 2007, before they invented the iPhone, and I had held that stock forever, and I had millions and millions and millions of dollars in the bank, guess how much tax I pay on that? 0. But if I buy a house and it doubles and triples or goes tenfold, I've got to pay on that unrealized gain. Why is it? It protects politicians who aren't good at controlling their expenses of government and have these self-increasing taxes. So they can say, I didn't increase your taxes, but they do. They increase it every year by saying, oh, your property is worth more. You should pay more in taxes. I think that's wrong. And I think these politicians need to be accountable to their people. If they can't manage their budget, then they have to say, hey, we're raising taxes to do it, and make the case. Own it.
The concept, yes. We cut property taxes by $1.5 billion with a B in DeKalb County. I'm not going on record, though, that I support legislation currently being debated under the Gold Dome. Let me tell you why. There is no fiscal note. There were no study committees. We don't know how much it's going to cost. And more importantly, we have no idea how we're going to fill the budget, the hole in the budget that would be blown at the state and local level. The potential there is to dismantle public education in this state. I will never say yes to something without the details. Although I do support reducing property taxes and have not only supported it, but actually passed legislation that has generated $1.5 billion in tax cuts for ad valorem taxpayers in DeKalb.
I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody in this room that wouldn't want to put a cap on property taxes. It's a runaway freight train. It's unaffordable, and no matter what zip code you live in. And we can talk about its assessments. We can talk about overspending. It's a lot. But I also want to call into question here the weaponization of taxes in campaigns. Republicans are running around. Some are saying they're going to eliminate the state income tax just for the sole purpose of getting elected. Some are saying they're going to completely eliminate property taxes. Well, the reality of that is your schools would have to shut down, and our bond status would go to junk bond status overnight. We need responsible, mature adults to talk about tax policy that lasts longer than campaign cycles. As governor, I'll be serious and pay attention to the details and represent you well. Thank you.
It's great when other candidates are following me on social media. So I would say this. We're having this huge debate under that gold dome. And if it's going to negatively impact our senior citizens to where it will tax them out of their home, that's a problem for me. If it's going to negatively impact our school system, that's a problem for me. And so we have 4 bills right now because Michael Thurman is right. None of them have a fiscal note. None of them, right? And so they're not saying how they're going to make up this $6 to $9 billion shortfall. And so that surplus that we all love to talk about, I'll do this and I'll do that with programs, it will blow a hole through that surplus overnight.
So I'm proud of the fact that I sponsored and passed legislation that gave City of Atlanta seniors up to $1,000 off of their property tax bills, working with school board members like Chivy Brooks, who's in the room here today, to ensure that our seniors in Atlanta would not be kicked out of their homes. And I look forward as governor to ensuring that we find ways to lower property taxes. And here's the thing. Don't let folks distract you about the debate, because right now it's the assessments on commercial properties and corporations that are making your property taxes more expensive. They are undervalued because corporations have lawyers. And as a result, you are bearing the brunt of the property tax debate. We should assess those corporate properties at their fair market value and make them pay their fair share.
This was a good one for me. I was watching the video for the Manufacturers Association. They kicked off their U.S. tour, and the president was talking about workforce. That was a big piece of it, right? And the first stop was Cleveland. Southeast is Charlotte. And I was hoping, wow, we missed Georgia. And so my question is this, how do we really kind of face these workforce shortages in skilled trades and technical fields? And being very specific, what kinds of expansions or support will we put around apprenticeships and training to really kind of make sure that they don't skip us next year? So, and we start that one with Mr. Brown.
So one of the few people around this table who can say I actually created jobs. I walked past folks' offices who were on their computers planning their weddings, buying cars, buying homes, and I know what it is to pay payroll every 2 weeks. It will wake you up before your alarm clock. And so I know what it is to create jobs. I also know what it is to help support other people in the creation of jobs, here particular in the state of Georgia, such as the Russell family. Here's what I'm proposing we will do. It is the 12+2 promise, where every kid in Georgia graduates not only with a diploma, but 2-year certification, either in IT or trade. And immediately when they walk across that stage, they will be certified to be global workers, not only in the United States of America, but anywhere in the world. I've created jobs. I will continue to create jobs as your next governor.
So workforce is primarily it's an education problem, right? And we've got to start with from 0 to 4, early childhood education when brains are forming, right? Neuroplasticity goes like this, 0 to 4, right? 0 to 4. It is so important to increase early childhood education so the brains are ready to learn. Then we got to teach kids how to read with programs that actually teach kids how to read. Don't teach them how to fake to read. And then we have to have internship programs that start in high school. I helped my cousin. My cousin didn't finish college, but I helped him start a plumbing company. And let me tell you, he probably did better than I've done. He has crushed it in that business. There is dignity and worth and power in trades, and we need to make sure the next generation of our young people see they can be pillars in their communities and business owners, and they don't have to start in college. TCSG is incredible. I'll tell you, there's a lot of programs out there right now. Home Depot, Pathway to Pro program. It is free right now. Free for you to actually go through that Pathway to Pro program and become an electrician. We need to make sure people are aware of these programs, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But what we do need to do is to encourage people to learn and grow and follow their passions.
As defects director during the welfare reform era, I led and created an initiative called Work First, and we helped 90,000 welfare-dependent Georgia families move from welfare to work. As your labor commissioner during the Great Recession, we helped over 300,000 jobless Georgians find jobs. As your governor, we will encourage and support men and women, white collar, blue collar, no collar. All work has dignity. Where we have to really focus is expand an initiative that was called Fatherhood Initiative. We took a program where we were putting non-custodial fathers in jail who could not afford their child support. We created a contract with the technical schools so that those fathers who wanted to get training and a job could do so. We helped them go to work, generated millions of dollars in child support, and taught the joys of responsible parenting. You can curse the darkness or light a candle, and that's what we were about. Thank you.
No two career paths are the same sitting in this room here today. Everybody's got different trajectories. Chris, to your point about Georgia Tech, my first job out of Georgia Tech was playing professional baseball. It was a great first job. Yeah, that's right. It was a great first job. But what I will tell you is you have to intentionally invest for decades. Early childhood education has got to be a mandatory step for us. We need to compete with the rest of the world. We need to make sure a K-12 system is fully funded, has the resources in all 159 counties. But we also need to build a better connectivity with our technical schools, which are spreading out around the state, and also partnering with public-private partnerships. We need to make sure the jobs and the individuals that we're producing as a state are ready and able to walk into a job that gives them the opportunities to succeed. It's got to be intentional. It costs dollars. It takes effort, but also includes partnerships as we move forward.
This is an excellent question, Ray. I was having a walk with my intern, Jamarcus, here. We were walking from the Capitol, and a Waymo vehicle drove by. And, he said, Representative Jackson, it's a Waymo. I said, yeah, concerning for me. AI is taking over. See, when I got remarried 5 years ago, my wife and I, we now have 7 children. And I think about where they are today and what jobs will be here tomorrow. AI is replacing a lot of jobs. On the way here, I stopped at Quick Trip, not too far from the house. And it was a robot that almost knocked me down that was mopping the floor. And so we need a governor that's going to be thinking about 10 to 15 years from now. What kind of jobs do we need? And yes, that work starts in the cradle. And we need to make sure that our curriculum are creating critical thinkers, creative thinkers, and problem solvers. And we have those 3 skill sets, we'll be able to continue to have jobs for our children for tomorrow.
Yeah, so I want to make this clear. We can't be the #1 state to do business unless we have a workforce that is healthy and educated. And when you look at those indicators around healthcare and around education, Georgia is on the bottom half in the country on all of those measures. So as governor, when it comes to good paying jobs, when it comes to apprenticeship programs, I want to make sure that we start early. Planting the seed in middle school, talking to elementary school kids about their future. But at the same time, I want to make historic investments in apprenticeship programs, working with organized labor. Labor unions have some of the best apprenticeship programs right now. The carpenters, for example, you don't need experience. You can start a 1-year apprenticeship making $40,000 a year. Once you're done with that apprenticeship, you could be making close to 6 figures. I also want to make sure that we put dignity back into work. I'm going to set a goal as governor. 45% of our high school graduates will be certified in a trade or in an apprenticeship program. And I'm going to celebrate those folks who are going into work just as much as we celebrate those who go to UGA or Georgia Tech.
We did this nation a great disservice somewhere in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s when we told a child that could use their hands really good at it, they weren't as smart as someone that went to college. And when we took shop out of high school, that was a great disservice. We need to go back and double down because AI is here. It's here. And we can either lead or we can get run over. And I was reading an article the other day. A CEO from one of the companies said, look, The state that is smartest in dealing with AI will be the one that invests in its technical college system, because you're going to have to be able to build and wire and maintain. And as Mike said, though, but when your toilet backs up, though, in the middle of the night, AI is not showing up. A plumber's going to show up. The future millionaires in this country are going to be able to use their hands. But we've got to be able to market. We've got to tell children and their parents and teachers and principals and school boards. We got to go back, remove that stigma from what has occurred in the technical college system. And yes, apprenticeship programs matter as well. Omar, you're doing it right now. The private sector can do it. We saw it, particularly with the German companies that we were bringing from economic development. And it makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, Mr.
We currently get a 0 out of 100 on worker protections in Georgia. In fact, we're one of the worst states for workers in the country. And there's a lot of reasons for that. As I mentioned, is the fact that our minimum wage is still at $5.15 an hour. And when we talk about needing more workers in the workforce, we have to improve our working conditions. You just can't have one without the other. And that is sort of the part about how we are going to fix problems in the present. But also when we talk about investing in our future, y'all, our literacy rate is worse than Mississippi. Worse than Mississippi. And I cannot begin to tell you how angry that makes me, because I never want to rank worse than Mississippi on anything. But they gave us the playbook on how to fix it. And kids in particular, we don't identify when they're having literacy problems early enough, and they end up behind the entire time for the rest of their career. We have a literacy program ready to go. We just need the courage to be able to pass it, especially with this legislature that has been playing ping pong with it. And last but not least, you've heard about apprenticeship programs. But yes, they have to be attached to unions, because we've seen in other states where they will attach an apprenticeship program to a company. That company, like the Hyundai plant, decides to replace all their workers with robots. And now those same students who had the specialized skill set have nowhere else to go. So we need to make sure that as we push these apprenticeship programs, we include some sort of curriculum that will give them a well-rounded way of having multiple skill sets, not just one.
Thank you, Representative Roman. The final round of questioning will be candidate specific. For the sake of time, we'd like for you to include your closing statements as well. I'd like to begin with Clark Dean. Georgia has one of the highest infant mortality rates, maternal mortality rates in the country. What concrete policies would you implement to improve outcome for our mothers?
Absolutely. Thank you for pointing that out. The fact of the matter is, as I said before, we've been number one in business for like 12 years. We should be number one in lots of things, and we shouldn't be number 37 in maternal mortality. The fact of the matter is there are lots of opportunities to partner in communities to catch health problems before they get really bad. Right now, a lot of women die in childbirth because they have hypertension that leads to preeclampsia. But there are very cost-effective ways to actually get monitoring devices to monitor for blood pressure increases that can actually reach out and then allow a physician to reach out to that mother to get them the care they need to get off that so that they don't develop into hypertension. There are ways to actually create through community health working programs to actually reach out and to fill the gaps between these rural communities, to actually cover the cost of care and to be able to actually help these mothers get what they need as they continue to grow. The other thing too, the good Lord invented this great thing called an egg. And an egg in Honduras, which we actually used in Honduras, we created this program. I didn't come up with it, but it's fantastic. It's called 1,000 Days of Eggs. And what we were able to do is give mothers, when they presented pregnant, an egg a day for 1,000 days. And what we found was that actually, and by the way, mothers are the most giving people in the world, so you can't just give the mother an egg, you got to give it to the whole family. So the whole family gives like 1,000 days of eggs. But what's incredible, because it has the B12, it has the protein, it has the closine for brain development, what had happened was not only did they have fewer premature births, and they improved their maternal mortality rate. Oh, I thought you said, was it one? Sorry. Anyway. It was good. It was good. And not only was it good, the kids learned and they got a lot better. So, and then closing statement, which I thought I had 1 minute for the closing statement as well. Apologies for that. I'm not a politician, but this is a team sport. And the fact of the matter is, I hope that I can get each and every one of you, including you guys around here, to be on my team. I can help bring people together to solve problems in a fresh way that this state has never seen. You need somebody in this state who actually serves all 11 million Georgians as clients and has the commitment to service above self, has the ability to solve complex problems, and actually has the dedication to ensuring that all Georgians thrive. Man, this thing is not about me or anybody else here at the table. It is about you. It is about what you hope for yourselves, for your family, for your life. And whoever ends up on West Paces Ferry, I hope you pick someone who cares deeply about you and is going to take this on as a service job to mobilize the best resources in the world to serve the state of Georgia. And that I will commit to you. I will do. So I hope I get your support. I hope I get your vote. And please come up to me afterwards. Got a lot more to talk about than we can talk about in the short time. But thank you.
Thank you. This next question is for Mr. Thurman. You have decades of experience in the Georgia government. Some voters are calling for generational change. Why is your experience an advantage right now rather than a drawback? And please weave your closing statement into this. Thank you.
So what's the time? I'm confused. It's 2 minutes. Okay. No offense. No offense. I was confused by it too. I offer you today a bold new vision for Georgia. And it's the vision of a Georgia not separated by North Georgia and South Georgia, a Georgia not separated by urban, rural, or suburban Georgia. It is a Georgia not separated by Black, white, Hispanic, Latino, or Asian. I'm convinced that if we will rise to this occasion, if we will work together and play together and maybe even cry together, we can build one Georgia, a Georgia that offers education opportunities to all of our children, regardless of zip code. We will build a Georgia that will not separate itself between Republicans and Democrats when we talk about expanding Medicaid to every citizen across this state. Let me tell you something. Expanding Medicaid is not a Black thing, it's not a white thing, it's a right thing. Providing food and expanding SNAP benefits, that's not a Black thing, it's not a white thing, it's a right thing. And what we have to do is that we have to elect a governor who will stand in the gap, who will take on the tough jobs, who will not grow weary and not get tired. I come here to tell you that I don't need anyone, whether they're in the White House or anybody else, to tell me how he can make America great again. Let me tell you something. I'm a living, breathing example. America has been, is, and will always be the greatest nation on the face of this earth. Give me this opportunity, and you will take an old country boy that came literally from the outhouse, who practiced law at courthouses, who served at the State House, where you stand in the gap with me, you put your boots on the ground, and we're going to go from the outhouse to the courthouse to the State House. We're going to the governor's house. And let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to rename it the People's House, because it ain't nothing but highfalutin, subsidized public housing anyway. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Mr. Thurman.
Okay, for the next question, in D9, we have this phrase, crossing the burning sands, and I think we're at that time. So without having held public office before, share with the audience and the voters why they should vote for you for governor of great state of Georgia.
And this is for me?
Yes.
Okay. So I grew up in a little small town in Texas, and I remember watching my mother, who got her graduate degree at University of Georgia, who was a public school teacher. She taught fourth grade, taught me in the fourth grade. She said she never cried so much in her life until she taught me in the fourth grade. But I would watch her with a checkbook, and there were tears in her eyes because she was raising 3 kids by herself with a master's degree from the University of Georgia, and there was never enough money. I vowed then that I would spend the rest of my life fighting for people like my mother, not only women, but also men who wanted to do what they loved and be able to afford to take care of their families. And so you're right. I am not a career politician. I have not spent 20 years in committee rooms. And to be honest with you, if the career politicians around this table and those who aren't around this table did everything they needed to do, we wouldn't have some of the issues that we have right now in our state. They're not getting the job done. It's time that we look from the outside and bring folks like me to the inside who have to do this stuff every single day. I could not pay payroll if I didn't make it happen. I couldn't hire people if I couldn't make it happen. The world that I come from does not take an opportunity to bring a group of people together just to have a discussion and tell the elected officials we couldn't get it done. If I didn't get it done as a leader, bills weren't paid. So my experience as your next governor is a person who cares, a person who sees, and a person who has always gotten the job done. Just 2 miles from here, we bought a blighted property. It was in the city of East Point, 76,000 square foot warehouse with 25 folks. We purchased that warehouse, and now it's this church called Impact United Methodist Church. It's the largest United Methodist congregation in the state of Georgia, one of the fastest growing churches in the nation. When I left 3 years ago and retired, we had a multi-million-dollar budget, multi-million-dollar payroll. And people say, Olu, can you manage a big budget? I can do better than that. I can build a budget because I had to do it for my whole career. My name is Olu Brown. I want to be your next governor. Go to oluforga.com, and I need your support.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. The next question is for Mr. Duncan. You served as a Republican lieutenant governor, and now you're running as a Democrat. What specifically changed in your views, and why should Democratic primary voters trust that that change is real and permanent?
Thank you for the question. I'm going to join the stand-up club. It's an honor to be here, and it's rooms like this where I get to share my heart. I get to share my story. I don't make excuses. I didn't read the wrong paperwork. I didn't push the wrong button. I made a few mistakes, and I've learned along the way. My faith has been able to shape me in a way that allows me to not walk by that homeless person anymore and be expected to make excuses why it's their fault. Why I drive by the emergency room parking lot and not make excuses for why that person has to make the most difficult decision they've ever made in their life, whether they deal with their own issues on their own or go bankrupt their family, or walk by another television screen watching a mass shooting play out and make an excuse why we shouldn't pass common sense gun legislation. I don't have to do any of that anymore. I wake up as a proud Democrat with a better toolkit than I've ever had in my life to meet more Georgians where they're at. My wife and I, Brooke, went to a Shabbat dinner a couple of weeks ago, and this retired judge came up to me, and he said, you know what? I see a lot of myself in you. He said, some of the most memorable decisions I ever made was when I took the time to reverse myself. Because I took the time to dig into the details and the humility to say publicly that I was wrong. That's where I'm at today. The biggest regret I have is that I didn't do this sooner. But here we go. We've got an opportunity to win this election, and for the first time in nearly 30 years, take Georgia in a better direction. Our family motto, Brooke and I are raising 3 boys. We met in high school, and she knew I was running for governor at some point. She probably would have went to prom with somebody else. We're raising 3 boys, and our family motto is doing the right thing will never be the wrong thing. And that comes up in different ways and shapes and form every minute of every day. In the heat of the moment when Donald Trump was tweeting at us and we were getting death threats and armed state troopers were around our house, one of my sons walked down and gave me that coaster, and he said, hey, Dad, doing the right thing will never be the wrong thing. Running for governor as a Democrat is the right thing for Jeff Duncan to do, and I look forward to earning your vote, look forward to earning your respect. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan.
For the sake of time, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time, we're just going to turn this into closing arguments, if everyone's okay with that. So, Senator Estevez, 2 minutes.
Thank you again to you, Omar, and thank you again to all of you for being here this afternoon. My name is Jason Estevez, and I'm running for governor because I want to make sure that the hardworking people of this state have a fair shot. And that's what I've been doing my whole life, whether it's been as a teacher, as a school board member, as a state senator, as a small business owner. And as your governor, I'm going to fight for our democracy, but I'm also going to focus in on lowering the cost of living, on making sure that we expand access to our health care, and make sure that our children and our grandchildren have more opportunities than what we've had. I'll spend every day that I'm in that office focused on your health, your wealth, and your opportunities. So if you are tired of the old politics, the reason that we are here in the first place, then I ask you to join our team, a new generation of leadership, one that is focused on giving you something to vote for, not just something to vote against. Visit my website, jasonestevez.com. Follow me on social media. And here's what I know. We are living in a time where we have a president of the United States that is trying to feed on your despair and leave you hopeless. But there is plenty of hope and opportunity in the state of Georgia. And like the Reverend Warnock says, we have to keep the faith. But as my mom told me, faith without works is dead. We have to do the work, and that work starts now. And I know that if we organize together, if we stand up together, if we fight together, we will not only win this election in November, we're going to change the face of leadership in this state for generations to come. Thank you so much for having me.
Representative Roman.
When I was first elected, I remember in the state house, I was told that the only way to get anything done is to just get along, right? The idea was that if you just compromise here and there, then you could actually be successful under that gold dome. And the best lesson I ended up learning was that no, you don't have to do that. The reality is that I've been able to work on some incredible bipartisan initiatives, whether that was to pass bills or even stop bad ones with my colleagues across the aisle. And I didn't have to pretend to be something I'm not. That's the reality about politics today. The reality about politics today is that you cannot walk into a room and say one thing and then go into another room and say another, because we live in a very different age. And I've noticed that the crossover voters that folks love to talk about are the ones that know where you stand. Because if they don't know where you stand, they're going to know they're going to fall for anything. And that's why I'm running. I'm tired of being failed by leaders on every party level. Doesn't matter if they're left or right or whatever the case may be. Because our fight right now is not left versus right. It's top versus bottom. We have enough to take care of each other. We have enough for our communities. We have enough to make sure that our state leads. Because our state did lead. Our state is the home of multiple movements that have led our entire country. Today is the birthday of the late John Lewis. My first job out of college was working at the Center for Civil and Human Rights, where I had to walk him and other incredible legends like him and literally learned at their feet how to organize and change the world around us. We are the state of good trouble. And we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity this year to say to that good old boys club, y'all failed us. And because y'all failed us, we are going to do things differently. And that's why I'm running for governor. I'm running for governor, like I said, to raise the minimum wage, to feed hungry kids, to reopen those hospitals, to take homes back from corporate landlords. Because life has become untenable for too many people, and it's time we had leadership that will change that, and we'll do that uncompromisingly. Thank you.
Representative Jackson.
How much time do we get? More than 30 seconds, I hope.
This time you do.
Woo! I'm going to stretch myself. First off, thank you, Omar. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to you all who are spending this Saturday afternoon with us. You know, speaking of John Lewis, whom I had the opportunity to meet in 2016 when I first got elected, and had the opportunity to learn from for 4 years before he transitioned. And he said, if you see something that's not right, not fair, and unjust, Derek, you have a moral obligation to do something. And so my moral obligation to you all is to use my 42 years of leadership, service, and experience. I shared with you all that I started off in the United States Navy as an E1 and worked my way all the way up to a lieutenant commander when I retired for 22 years. After that, I went into corporate America. But my service did not stop there. Even when I was at GE, I helped raise $1.4 million to help shelter battered women with children. But when my first wife, as I shared already, when she received that deadly word of you have cancer, and she since passed away, and the good Lord blessed me with a second wife, and I got remarried 5 years ago, and we have 7 amazing young adults. The oldest is 31. I walk her down the aisle next month. The youngest is 20. And I tell our 4 daughters, our 3 sons, that we have a democracy. And I'm fighting each and every day to keep this democracy. And that's why I'm asking you all to hire me to become your 84th governor. Because I'm focused on family, our rights, and the military. And with that, go to voteDerekJackson.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney General Carr.
Well, I'm standing too. Omar, Tamisha, Ray, thank y'all so much for taking the time to do this. To everybody in the room, thank y'all for coming as well. Clark, thank you for being here. To my future potential Democratic opponents, appreciate y'all being here. I would note there are 3 no-shows here today, though. So you may want to just keep that in mind, all right? Just keep that in mind. My family moved to Georgia when I was 6. My dad wanted to be a small business owner, and back in the 70s, you could buy a business in the want ads, and that's what he did. But Georgia was the model of hope for him, and that's why we moved here. Georgia has been that model of hope for so many people. And when we got down here, I am told my parents had $16 in the bank account at one point. And I saw my dad turn around and work hard, and we had to work hard. I cut grass, and when you turn 16 in the car house, you got a driver's license and a real job. So I delivered pizzas, and I worked at a record store. If you are under the age of 40, Google record store. It was great. Music. I had to work my way through the University of Georgia undergrad and law school. I had a great opportunity to work with Johnny Isakson, who I think to this day is one of the greatest elected officials we've ever had in this state. And I got to work in Washington, because if Washington's not going to work and they're not going to do anything, and they're not, the issues fall down on the state. And so I've worked on issues of immigration and oversight and business issues and all the things. National security, public safety, because that's what governors end up having to do. And then I worked at the Department of Economic Development as the commissioner. We brought 84,000 jobs. That's 84,000 lives that will forever be changed in billions of dollars worth of investment, because I believe in the power and the transformative nature of a job. And now I've been at the Attorney General for 10 years. And like I said before, the one thing government's supposed to do is keep people safe. And I don't care what happens. I will be proud of what we've done on human trafficking, fighting violent gangs, and organized retail theft. Why? Because under the Human Trafficking Unit, we have rescued and assisted over 200 victims. That's 200 lives that will forever be changed. We fought gangs all over the state, and organized retail theft is the new thing. And by the way, if you're not willing to prosecute property crimes, so the grocery store or the hardware store, the CVS has to close. Look at who's most vulnerable to human trafficking, violent gang activity, or when those stores have to close. It's lower income, racially diverse, and immigrant populations. And like I said before, I don't care where you live in this state. I don't care your race, your gender, your religion, your sexual orientation. You deserve to be safe. And oh, by the way, it's an economic development issue too. Nobody's going to locate a business or come here for a tourism opportunity or expand their customer base if they don't feel safe. But I can't work on education or work on business issues or work on regulation or work on taxation or work on mental health. Or my wife's here. She was a product of the foster care system. We want to modernize it as well. But we can't do that unless we win. I'm running for governor as a Republican. There are 3 really rich guys that are trying to buy this race and one guy trying to earn it. I want to earn your vote. And no matter how much money they have, there's only one guy that can win the primary and the general. That's me. I'm Chris Carr. I'm running for governor, and I want to earn your vote. Thank you.
All right, so as we close out, I want to do a pretty brief speech. I want to remind everyone that I am an independent. I supported Governor Kemp, and we became good friends. And because I supported Governor Kemp, we passed the first bill in the state of Georgia for small business that had minority provisions. I too supported Mayor Dickens because of his initiative for small business and affordability. I supported VP Harris, but I must say, there were people in the state of Georgia who did not want me to support VP Harris simply because I supported Governor Kemp. We cannot let this divide stand in the state of Georgia. Let me be clear. We are one here in the state of Georgia. The cost of living impacts us all. This very building that we sit in is a building with 100% minority tenants. So my loyalties are clear. I can take care of my community, and I can take care of the other people on the other side of the aisle because I too understand their struggles. So let this sink in today. And I thank everyone for coming today. All of the candidates, thank you all for trusting. And everyone in the room, thank you for continuing to allow me to lead you guys on the right path.